The Australian dollar is holding firm at near parity with the US after rising to a 28-year high just after Christmas. While it's good news for overseas travellers and online shoppers, the strong dollar is also making Australian exports less competitive on the global market. For the film industry, the writing's been on the wall for more than a year, with a rising dollar meaning it's too expensive for foreign studio executives to make their movies in Australia. The federal government has announced a review of tax incentives, and individual states such as New South Wales are doling out grants from an assistance fund. But the local film industry is downsizing, and many in the sector say they can't wait. Sarah Dingle reports.
It's school holidays and the box office is running hot. Despite DVDs, the internet and the rise of digital television, Australians still love going to the movies.
Next in line, please.
Although they might not know it, in the past these crowds flocked to Hollywood blockbusters, some of which were made in Australia. It could be some time before they do so again.
It is perhaps the hardest it's ever been. In terms of international inquiries looking at Australia as a production destination, we have less now than we've ever had.
I have no future projects on the horizon.
The Warner Brothers film Narnia Voyage of the Dawn Treader was the last big-budget foreign film made in Australia.
Hold it if you wish. No, it's yours. Peter gave it to you.
Shot in Queensland, Narnia's production wrapped more than a year ago.
100 for the little lady!
I think it was about a year employment for me and a lot of crew. At times we had over 1,000 people on the payroll each week.
Jennifer Cornwall is a film production manager of 20 years' experience. Her credits include the children's adventure Nim's Island, shot on Queensland's beaches, and the action-packed Superman Returns, filmed in Sydney. Her last job was another action film, the $200 million American movie Battleship, whose producers pulled the plug.
We were looking at employing over 600 crew full-time on Battleship, plus extras, stunt performers, etc. There was, a lot of crew would have had work on the film.
We were their preferred destination, but unfortunately the incentive just wasn't strong enough for them to stay in Australia.
That incentive is a 15% tax offset for big-budget overseas productions, mostly from the US, being made in Australia. It's Tracy Vieira's job as Australian Film Commissioner based in LA to keep up that flow of projects. When the Australian dollar was worth less than 80 US cents, that 15% was enough to lure Hollywood down under. Now higher incentives in the UK, Canada and some US states are keeping productions in the Northern Hemisphere.
The ring is trying to get back to its master. Here at Fox Studios to announce that the New South Wales government has secured the big-budget Hollywood film Green Lantern.
6 months after then New South Wales Premier Nathan Rees's press conference, last October Green Lantern became another casualty.
At about 74 cents in the dollar, they were starting to get concerned, and at 84 cents in the dollar, it was actually going to save them significant amounts of money to pull out, even with that loss of investment they'd already made.
Both Battleship and Green Lantern went to the state of Louisiana with a 35% tax incentive, a move which, in Green Lantern's case, saved tens of millions of dollars. Back in Sydney, movie lot Fox Studios is as empty as it was on the day of the New South Wales Premier's announcement.
Last international production would have been Wolverine, and prior to that, Australia, Baz Luhrmann's Australia.
So we're talking 2008?
2008. The real concern is the skills drift. We're seeing hundreds of crew drift offshore or into non-related industries.
Alaric McCausland is the Australian head of post-production company Deluxe, which over the decades has worked on films from Picnic at Hanging Rock to Happy Feet. Now Deluxe is cutting staff and getting out of the movie game.
we have to look to other areas to sustain our business, and that means, regrettably, areas outside of the feature industry. It means moving into more diverse broadcast and advertising-based streams.
On Friday, New South Wales announced a handful of new foreign films would come to Sydney for production, but only after the producers received extra assistance from a special $20 million state fund, which they said was crucial to overcoming the strong dollar.
Walking trail. Madame,
The director of Australian movie Wolf Creek, Greg McLean, says the Australian domestic industry needs big foreign productions to come to our shores.
But I'm heading south.
Everybody loses because ultimately all of those crews who then get skilled up working on these huge films, and then they go on to work on Australian films. So it actually raises the quality and skill level of all of the domestic productions that are made.
And then you come down into the fire.
We really need to double our incentive to 30%. We have facilities such as visual effects houses and post-production companies. So with all of those things and an incentive at 30%, even though we won't be the most cost-effective, we'll definitely be in the game.
Doubling the tax offset to 30% seems quite large. What would you say to critics who would say that's massive?
It's what you have to do to compete on a very globally competitive landscape. And I think we need to remember it's not a grant. It's designed to deliver significant inflows of external investment into Australia.
The Arts Minister, Simon Crean, declined to comment ahead of a major review of the film industry's offsets in the coming months. But with more than a year between big-budget productions and major Australian lighting company Panelux now up for sale, by the time any new incentives are announced, the industry may have changed dramatically.
I really feel that we're at a point where really the next month is critical.
I can't sit around for another 6 months and wait for a job, unfortunately. So my 20 years experience in the industry will go away because I'll have to find work in another industry.
That report from Sarah Dingle.